Many of you will know the London Care and Support Forum. We've worked around London for some 12 years now, working with commissioners, with providers, with various bodies like Skills for Care. International recruitment is not new. As you'll see from when we go through the slides, it's something that has been going on for many years since the inception of the NHS. It's been a big part of social care and continues to be a very big part of social care. And this has come about because of queries from providers, because of problems with recruitment, and because of problems across social care of actually managing recruits and retaining staff, whether those staff are internationally recruited or locally recruited. And we have been asked by a group of local authorities to do this work, and those local authorities, there's 18 to 20 of them that cover the north central area. They cover the southeast London area and the southwest London area, and those areas are largely defined by the ICS, although we are aware of other people joining the group who may be outside of that area but do work in the area. And just flicking on, I mean, Dudley's put these slides together and he can take you through some of them, but we're all familiar with the Windrush. That was not the start of immigration by a long way, but it's perceived as being the start for many people around health and social care recruitment abroad. Okay, Dudley.
Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you for joining. This is something that's passionate for me. My mum came across from Africa many years ago, and she was a nurse and experienced working in NHS. And the stories almost come around reciprocal in the fact that international recruitment was a thing that was spoken about. Actually, it's famous saying at the moment, it's 75 years of Windrush, when the Windrush boat came in, and also 75 years of the NHS. And there was a story that the NHS was supported by a lot of those from different parts of the world to support them regards to making it and keeping it in place. And we're in a similar position when we think about health and social care. At present, at the moment, there's been a call on many vacancies and issues around retention and recruitment. And one of the things that people have looked at is maybe definitely not the only answer, but definitely maybe a quick fix or maybe a long-term fix of bringing staff in from overseas. So one of the most important things that we've looked at here is really thinking beyond that and really taking into consideration the wealth of knowledge that we're bringing in from those from overseas that can make contributions and help us when we're trying to provide and support those staff coming in. I think it's an interesting space that's been developing, because not only are we valuing the talent of those from different parts of the world globally, but also as well, we're actually covering those working here and especially providers and the people we care for. One element I find which is quite intriguing and definitely very helpful is that there's constantly people saying that those people from abroad have a natural caring element. It's natural to them to look after their parents, and they live maybe longer lives living with them in their houses. So it's a second nature for them. And part and parcel of this is to help advise, give guidance, but also as well, we understand that providers, their role is meant to be the people helping people in the health and social care sector. But then what we've looked at is by giving them the responsibilities here, they're now working as recruiters from an overseas and international recruitment. We don't expect to be the experts, but yet you have to be. And getting it wrong can be really, really, really vital that you don't get it wrong, because there are really consequences, as we know. And also as well, we know with all the bad stories that can potentially happen and the pitfalls that happen as well, it can be deemed to where you can end up being fined, losing your sponsorship licenses. And also as well, we know there is a common thing at the moment that seems to be taking place. It's called modern day slavery. And we're trying to keep you as providers to be experts in your field, but also get all the guidance you need, where to go, the costings, where to recruit from, how to recruit. Really a real element of here where we're thinking about international recruitment for providers from an ethical, safer, and value-based recruitment. Peter, if you could turn to the next slide as well. And the purpose of what we're doing here is that, as Peter said, that we've been really commissioned by 3 of the 5 London ICSs across Southwest London, Southeast London, and North Central London to provide guidance support to providers in this area to address the significant recruitment and retention pressures in this area, which we know is a real element and concern. We know the levels of recruitment or vacancies that are needed in health and social care, and it's really continuing. The figures of 150 plus sort of staff needed to fulfill the gap across health and social care. And I think they say that it might be improving, but at the end of the day, it's still not enough. And many of you as providers and employers really are seeing the brunt of it and trying to find and struggle to find and fill that gap. And as I said before, international recruitment is just helping to bridge that gap, but it's to making sure you do it correctly. Next slide, please, Peter. So it's very interesting, and we've got a map up here of London, and we're covering a majority of London when we think about the boroughs here. And it's to understand the unique challenges faced by adult social care providers, especially in this space of international recruitment. Those may have started their journey, and others are going to be starting their journey, who have actually been on their journey as well. And also some are fed up, some maybe really want to know what's going on. And you can see here, and many of you may know this, if you work in any of these areas in the regions from Croydon, Kingston, Merton, Richmond, Sutton, Wandsworth, Bromley, Bexley, Greenwich, Southwark, Lambeth, Lewisham, Barnet, Camden, Enfield, Haringey, Islington, basically pan-London. And all of this is really to cover things across the board. We know challenges such as for the accommodation, and also as well, the other side of it is actually when recruits do come here, how to retain them. And pastoral care is one of the major things that I'm interested in, is how one ways of keeping your staff in there. Next slide, please, Peter. So the order of the day will be is that LCAS will be running a set of 10 free seminars, free seminars between now and March, addressing areas and parties involved with international and overseas recruitment. There will also be 3 live events, one in each area of the ICSs that we're taking place in, one in Southwest London, one in Southeast London, and one in North Central London. It means that all of you will be able to go to an actual session live. We'll be having guest speakers in, potentially from the Home Office, CQC, and other sort of supporting bodies that will be there, local authority, really about the area around this. You'll be able to find and speak to potential recruiters as well as advice from lawyers that we'll be having there on the day as well. And to make the most of these sessions, because usually it will cost you a lot just to get access to them as well. So we'll be actually doing free sessions, or a session that for you to also attend. We will let you know in time of the dates. And when those dates do come out, please do come out. We'll send out a form for you, and then you'll be able to register as well. As Peter said as well, we also want people to be able to share their knowledge of what they need and what they want from us. And it's for us to try and find that for you. We're here to support and give you guidance, and we'll be ended up in each of our sessions giving you extra information. And this is, as I say, the beginning of that. Peter, next slide, please.
If I could just add a couple of points.
Thank you, Peter.
I attended a meeting this morning with CQC, and one of the topics that came up was around modern day slavery, as Dudley mentioned, and exploitation of staff. Now, it's an unhappy topic. It's not one that we want to come across, but what has happened with international recruitment has meant that other areas of exploitation of staff have been raised to CQC. Technically, it's not their responsibility. It at times can be difficult to find out exactly whose responsibility it is, but it is something that the CQC are going to be looking at and will be reporting on. And they're also going to be looking much more closely now that they're working with the overviewing of local authorities around how staff are being paid. Because although a number of local authorities in London have been auditing or monitoring what people are being paid to check payment against, say, the London Living Wage, many haven't. And so some providers have been, let's say, saying one thing and doing another. That is going to tighten up. And there is, as I'm sure many of you will be aware, the Mayor's office are having an initiative to get the London Living Wage more widely used. And many local authorities and ICSs are signing up to that. So they are also looking to audit what the staff are actually paid at social care providers. So not paying what you're saying you're paying is going to be monitored. And if people are getting below the government living wage, then that is illegal. And there have been a number of cases of social care providers being pulled up for that. Thanks, Dudley.
Thank you. So we turn to the next slide, please, Peter. So part and parcel of we say the why. Why are we here? What is the purpose of these seminars? Why the interest? Why should anyone care? I think the purpose of this is that not just nationally, I think we know what's going on, especially in regards to the government. We understand as well the issues that keep coming up. We know various things and potential pitfalls that can happen with international recruitment. What we want to do is, as a sector, come together to actually showcase we can do it right and help each other to see where the things, so we don't get them wrong. And this is reason why we set up these seminars, actually to give you guidance, provide you with the right way to go. Fundamentally, it's going to be down to you when you make the choices, but we can only help steer people in the right way. We see lots of people talking. Peter and I work nationally across it with various bodies as well. We speak to Skills for Care. We're also speaking with other things as well, and Home Office directly. We're speaking with all the bodies that you may not have access to and trying to get things in advance so you are aware of what may be taking place. And we'll be sharing as much information as well across the board. Peter, can you turn to the next slide, please? So the why goes beyond just, as I said, things that we've said. We know the complexity and the process of what happens in regards to just signing up for those who are just coming in for the first time. Also as well, we want to know that also improving retention levels across social care and the provider market, providing clear and straightforward information on international recruitment and the various issues providers will need to overcome as well, addressing the main barriers affecting international recruitment, strengthening the ethical practices, collectively working with sub-regions as well to add value. This is not a one, it's not an easy fix, but it's a whole process. And it starts from, as we said, the ABCs, which will be our next session, is actually even before you start, for those who may not have done, where do we go? Who do we look for? The costings of it, the legal ramifications, the updates. It's a whole process and a journey that's taking place at the moment. And we're trying to steer you in the right direction. And this is the one of the things that we want to try and improve and provide for you as well. Peter, next slide, please. So as you can see here, these are some of the individual parties. We've got other things like HMRC that we've been speaking to. We're going to bring them for you as well to try and give you insight where best possible. Any questions that you were able to send us, we're able to try and get it directly, answers from them. If they can't have answers, put us in the right direction so that we know that we're doing the right thing. It's not easy, and it's an area which is quickly developing. And so what you may have been an expert yesterday and things may have changed tomorrow. We know that HMRC are getting involved, so they'll be able to see who's been paid what. So they'll be able to check for those who are coming in the country. And also as well, we now know as well that you can lose your license as well. So they're actually cracking down on providers or employers as well. So this is an ongoing space, and what happens next? And if you can't access the staff, and Peter will tell you as well, for staff, for example, who have been displaced, then what happens with them? Where do they go? How long can they stay in this country? And can providers like yourselves take other people on as well. So it's a huge area developing consistently. Next slide, please, Peter.
Yeah, if I could just add a couple of points there. Dudley mentioned that organisations have had their licenses revoked. There are some 94 social care providers that have had their licenses revoked, and a number who've had their licenses suspended. We're also seeing that in some areas there has been people have been brought in fraudulently. They've been paid large, or they rather have paid large sums of money to get here. In effect, they've been ripped off, and they're then being dumped in the UK with no work, little source of advice. This is obviously causing a great deal of concern. And in some areas, we're seeing local authorities are having to step in to take these people because they can't find any other route for them apart from deporting them. And that's going to affect the business that local authorities have to pass on to social care providers. So we're also looking for those providers who've been successful to try and work with them to mop up some of these poor souls that have been just dumped in the UK. And where it's unusual for local authorities, central government departments to work together, we are now seeing that the Home Office, the HMRC, the CQC as a government body, they are working together to try and provide some support for these people and also chase up those that have brought them in the situation that they're in. Dudley.
Thank you very much. And I know there's a few questions that are coming in the chat, and we'll be asking more questions as well. There's lots of guidance going around as well. We also understand the importance of getting it right. We also understand as well the cost that happens when you get it wrong, but also as well going to the wrong parties. There's lots of lawyers you can go to, and it's a process of what you can do. We've got a slide up here which is really showing the actual importance of what's going on at the moment when we think about this space. So as you can see here, in this year alone, there was over 50,000 staff that have come into health and social care from overseas. And what happened initially was the Home Office thought that this probably wouldn't be as busy as it is. And social care now, or international recruits from the care sector, have been the largest amount of group of people coming into this country, where now it seems to be a whole dedication going to it. So we're talking about 3 different government departments looking at this, from health, they're looking at the Home Office, and as well as health and social care. So it's important to understand the relevance of it, but the numbers that are coming in as well. And it's not going to stop, because I know many of you can actually do that. And why wouldn't you, when there are issues around overseas recruitment or actual recruitment in your own organizations as well? So I expect the numbers to get bigger, but it comes with a caveat. Now the Home Office are looking at it now in different ways. And so that means that there may be a crackdown on how people come in to get through, which was a lot probably more straightforward. It'll be difficult. We're looking at things like licenses now, how to get through to them. And also as well, when people come into this country, can they bring family members, and what will happen from there? And the questions that you may ask is, are they allowed to get any sort of funding or any remunerations whilst they're here? Those sort of questions we're looking at as well. Providers, we also will look at things like providing funding potentially, if it can be done, for training, and trainers that can train staff that come into this country, and the possibilities of areas around that. It's a huge, big area, and an area which can't be covered overnight, an area that we don't expect you as employers and providers to know everything, and hence why we've been set up these events to actually help and support you. Peter, do you want to add anything to this before we move on?
No, I don't think so at the moment. I think that the people will be aware of, from the press, the media, of the situation with the government and social care recruitment and international recruitment. I think most people will be aware that social care doesn't have a great reputation as far as the media is concerned. And that's something that outside of international recruitment, many of us can do something about. Dudley.
Thank you for that. Before I go and we go into the next slide, as you can see from this in itself, the largest number of staff coming in or care workers coming in are coming from Zimbabwe, or this year it was Zimbabwe, India, and Nigeria. But as we know, they come from many different parts of the globe as well. So it's also looking about that as well, of where you can find staff. But the checks are really important, and so are the pitfalls as well. Understanding who you're going to get through, your interview process, references, police checks. There are so many things to do, and it seems to be something that everyone seems to be running and pushing for, but without having that much experience. If you ask someone to come as a plumber to come into your organization or to come into your home, and you weren't sure about them, or that would be a big red flag. So we want to try and have as much expertise as possible. We don't expect you to have that. So we can move on to the next slide, please, Peter. So what's the right way, if there is a right way? Well, hopefully not the wrong way, but we're trying to give you the right way. Next slide, please, Peter. So Peter, over to you in regards to some things you encountered and what was said about the bad news maybe becoming an easy area for some, but bad news in the media for others.
Okay, let's not get onto the politics of the media, but there are several parts of the media that are kinder to social care and kinder to the working people than others. And The Guardian is looking for people who are international recruits to social care to contact them and tell them about their workplace experience. Now, it's pretty easy to find people that have had a bad experience, and what we'd like to do is to share this with you so that you can pass this on to people who've come in as international recruits and have had a good experience, because there are actually quite a lot of them. And The Guardian are quite open about it. They're happy to talk to all and sundry. So please take this information. We can send it to you. You can get it from the Guardian website directly and get people to contribute.
Thanks for that, Peter. If you go into the next slide. Okay, so these are going to be a chain of events that are going to be taking place over the next couple of months in doing that. We started today and it's just really an overview, really ABCs of actually what we'll be doing. Our next session is going to be really the unlocking of sponsorship licenses, cost, complexities, and compliance. And we're just giving you an intricacies of the obtaining of the license in the UK, the concise the concise, and the sessions focuses on the cost of implications, the key requirements, potential challenges tailored for social care providers aiming to recruit overseas talent. So with that one, we're going to be looking at, and we're going to have a lawyer present, and really all the other things that are going to come with it. So that'll be the first session. That'll be taking place on the 8th of December. We'll put a link in the chat for you to sign up. It's open for you, and the best thing of it is it's free. So it's just about just getting your time here, and anyone can be signposted to come in and do that. Next session will be there. We'll be advertising for the right overseas talent. One of the things is we all think of is, where do we go to? I've heard many a story, and my inbox has been flooded in with people coming from many parts of the world, and they tell me that they're the best care worker and they've got this, but where are the right overseas talent? Have we had good stories? Where can we go to? We're going to have a chain of top recruiters who've been doing it for many years, and those who've had real success and actually can give you cross references of what's happening, the pitfalls, ideas of staff, how to help them as well. Under 4, we streamline the application and interview process, which I think a lot of people have their own interview techniques, but are you asking the right questions? Are you looking in the right places? Are you getting the right references? Number 5 is navigating employment checks and documentation. We know that, and when it comes to documentation, it can be a real grey area when we look at that. So you must remember to really check and crack down on making sure you've got the right documentation and it's not someone's cousin or brother instead of the individual themselves. And if we go to the next slide, Peter, we go into demystifying visa application support. And that's a comprehensive guide on the types of visas available, application processes, and how to aid candidates on their visa journey. So once you've obviously got your COS as an employer, actually the visa process is very complicated, and there's going to be lots of people saying who pays what at what stage, do we be able to get our money back, and what is the process in regards to that. We go into number 7, is crafting a robust pre-arrival support system. One of the most important things, and I think is critical now, is once you've got all the regulations out of the compliance out of the way, bringing someone here and they are a human being, making sure you have a real pre-arrival support system in place. It's not something that you just think of overnight. Its preparation is key, because you're actually asking these people to be with you potentially for between 3 to 5 years. So you want them to have the best impression of you. What we're hearing a lot of at the moment presently is candidates that come into this country, they work with someone, they're not happy, then they move on, or vice versa. You bring someone in, and then before you know it, you're not happy with them. Anyone coming to any workplace is going to want to be able to make sure they feel happy. So the pre-arrival is probably one of the most important things that you can deal with. And that could be anything from housing, transportation, culture, just setting into a country, which is important. We go into 8 is really about pastoral care and emotional support, because some people will come without families and others will come with family members. So it's making sure that people are prepared, they're given, they're not homesick, they really want to enjoy really staying here around there. And then I think laying down the path when it's continued professional development. When anyone comes to the care sector, especially when we're training up people, we give them X amount of training. We ask them to try and do their levels, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, if you're lucky, and really give them mandatory training. And those for individuals who've been in this country. If you're asking someone to come from a different part of the world to come into here and actually get up to speed with their sort of training and ideas around it, the key factor is you need to do a lot of training, have things in place, look locally, and they will be supporting you with things that you can do, and also funded training as well whilst it's there, because it's funding comes and goes, but we'll be sharing with you what's available and what you can access as well. And last but not least, we'll be giving you the best practices, success stories, as Peter said, and lessons learned, because for all the great stories we always want people to avoid the lessons learned. We know, and I know personally of providers who've paid lots of money and have received things, and people have come and left them as well. So it's really can be a pitfall, and mindful of what can be going on and going forward. Peter, next slide. So the aim of it is today is to just showcase to you that today's session is here, and then our next session will be on the 8th of December, and that's going to lock in sponsorship licenses, costs and complexities and compliance. We're going to send this link in the inbox, the chat box, so you'll be able to sign up now and then share it amongst the people that you need to share it to. It's important that you do that, and we will so it should be in there as well. So you see the form in there, and you can actually just easily answer it as well. Before we go, Peter, if you have the next slide, please. Don't worry, we'll share the information in this. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I think someone said that they've lost the sound, so they may need to have to go in and come out again. So we're going to be asking for some Q&As, which we can do. We also have a lawyer that will be present, who'll be presenting today, just giving you just a rendition of what they've been experiencing, because since the December 2021, end December 2021, we've been made privy to really seeing, well, what is potentially could be happening in this space as well. Peter, do you want to get the questions in now, or do you want our lawyer to come in now as well?
I think it might be useful at this point if people have got questions whilst they're fresh in their mind, and some of those may be ones that the lawyer can actually answer as he goes through the system. So if you've got some questions, please fire away. I'll drop the slides so that we can see people. And if people would put their hand up to ask questions, and we'll go from there. And I'll just check to see what's in the chat, to see if there's anything in the chat.
So please don't be shy. Now is the best time to ask a question. Now we're going to have each session as well. The good thing about having the Q&As is that you actually give us questions that we can go and ask. As we said, we're dealing with the Home Office, we're dealing with other people as well. So therefore, we're able to try and get you some of the issues and concerns that you've got here.
I have a question, Faisal Rizvi.
Please fire away.
Living wage. A London living wage being 13.15 pence and direct payment being 14.50, 14.75. So for that £1.50 that we get, what do you want us to do with compliance and pastoral support and training and all that? Oh my God. You know, we need to get real, and the government and whatever regulatory bodies need to get really real. By the books, by the flowchart, it falls really good. It goes from one circle to the next circle, but reality is completely different.
Exactly. And this is something that I've come across. Which particular borough is that that's paying you 14 something?
I'm muted, sorry. I'm talking about direct payment. So if we take on direct payment client, this is what they're getting.
Yeah. I mean,
and rest is £16, £16.50.
Yeah, we're hearing a lot of complaint, should I say, comment about low fees.
This is grievance. This is not even complaint. We are expected to hold up to what local authorities' own cost or ICB's own cost is. Could somebody give me a ICB's own cost for a healthcare assistant, please? Their own hourly cost? It has to be between £25 to £30 an hour.
I think you're right. And if you go back to the fair cost of care exercise.
Precisely. So let's talk equal, please. Let's talk equal. And we need to collectively raise this with CQC as well as with GLA if they were ready to top up. Brilliant.
Well, I actually do some work on a London Living Wage Committee, which involves.
Can I join it?
I don't know who actually. I was asked to join it. I don't know who actually chairs it. I've never attended a full meeting or a meeting where all the supposed attendees have turned up.
I have asked GLN plenty of time to join it. Do I get an answer? No. Okay,
and what we will do is we will be taking various questions and requests here, and obviously we'll try and get back to you as well.
Faizi, can I just make sure that we've got Faizi's email in the chat so that I can pick her up later on, please?
If you direct message,
I will, yeah.
Please do. And I see we've got a question from Dolapo.
Yes, please.
Fire away, please.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Now, my concern is about the fixed hours. The Home Office expects employers to offer fixed hours for domiciliary care workers. But what happens in reality is clients go to the hospital, they die, they refuse carers and all. And then the hours keeps, fluctuating all the time. And the problem is the staff member is holding the employer up to the number of hours guaranteed, whereas from the local authority and everything, there's nothing like a retainer fee. That is, if a client goes to the hospital, sometimes 1 month, the elderly, 2 months, and that has been an issue, and it continues to be an issue that being able to keep up to the number of hours promised is becoming a big issue in the dom care sector.
Thank you very much. I think there is an ongoing issue and concern. I'm going to tell Peter, ask Peter if we can kindly wait. We've got Toby Way, a lawyer who's going to be here. He's going to be explaining a few things in regards to that. So I think if there are a few legal questions here, he'll be able to give you some sort of cross-reference of certain answers to do that. I know it's a forever going, changing place, and hours are really important, but also as well, I think the domiciliary care sort of sector at the moment is really probably the ones where we are seeing a lot of concerns around hours, work, guaranteed hours as well. And it's ongoing. And it's not just pay alone, it's how we meet the regulations that have been set out from the Home Office as well, and being compliant, which is huge as well. I think it's one of the biggest areas. So Toby will be answering part of that in there. So anyone else who wants to ask any legal questions regards to those coming through and so forth, please do now. And then what we'll do is we'll get Toby to, probably when he goes through his his session, he'll be able to give you some of the answers there. Okay, so we've got another question as well, which says that my understanding is that the Home Office expects you to report reduced hours via the SMS system so that they're aware of this situation. So yeah, so this is going to be sort of ongoing, and it's a changing space. So watch this space of what's happening. So Dolapo, I'm going to get Toby to answer that question. Is that okay with you?
Yes, it's okay.
Okay, no problem. And does anyone want to ask any more questions? Because we're going to be going into Toby to start just giving us just an overview of what things have done. And I think there's another question here. Adrian has said, I'm employees already working for us and wants to do their level 2 diploma. Can you share where funding is available? As I believe they will not qualify for the apprentice scheme as well. So we'll also give you some of the areas where you can train. We've got a training provider on here as well, and he will probably be able to support you as well. And if you can, I believe I saw John Bottle in here earlier. You may be able to give us some steer in the group as well. I think we have one more question before we go into presentation from Toby.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
I think what we're experiencing regarding, like, when we're doing the interview process, we're asking like the applicants if they drive, because we're domiciliary. Driving is like, you know, one of the crucial things. So they do say they drive and they have a driving license, but when they end up coming here and then, you know, we're giving them a car for them to drive, we realize that they're not able to drive safely. They may have a license, but they're not able to drive safely. So it puts us in a difficult situation that what do we do now? Because we do need drivers, like, especially if we're doing domiciliary care. So how does that work? Like, what do we do in terms of that? Because it just puts us in a really, really difficult situation.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think what I've found, I know some recruiters personally, actually, when they've come in, and I can put you in touch with them, they're actually providing driving lessons and support that are working with those, because people say they can drive, but driving in another country on different side of the road isn't as easy as that. And even not just the other side of the road, it's also looking about how to try to get them to drive. I mean, I could suggest for you, for example, to look into things like, before people come in here, actually, they should take a few lessons before they actually start driving in the road. And it might also, if it's your own vehicles as well, you definitely have to think about your insurance and your insurance premiums. So all of this is an area which is ongoing, and actually getting it right is when we having these sessions of trying to bring you more the expertise, but also things that have gone wrong and things that have definitely gone right. But I would turn around and say, with anyone expecting someone to come to this country and be an expert driver, I wouldn't trust anyone with a car unless I've seen them drive myself. So it's the sad side of things, is that people are going to say lots of things in their CVs and records, but the reality of it is, before you put them out there, is actually to probably see them or make them going through any form of driving sort of course, or seeing what they can do as well.
I think with driving, many people are not informed that, I forget exactly what the details are, but you can drive on a foreign driving license here for only a limited period of time. Then you have to get a UK driving license, which means taking a driving test. And I think all these things are parts of what could be loosely termed pastoral care and cultural awareness.
Indeed. So thank you very much. So Peter, I think, are we ready for Toby to come now?
Co-host, no problem.
Hopefully he should come in. Is Toby still there?
I am here. Can you
hear we can hear you.
Excellent. I'm not too familiar with this, but Zoom, we use Google Meet, so just bear with me. Okay. Oh. sorry, I'm just trying to share the, yeah, I think that's it. Sorry, can you see you can see me.
We can see Westbridge business immigration.
Can you see my slide?
Yep.
We saw it. There it indeed. Yes, we can.
So what my brief was a little bit broad, and I know I have to keep it short. So I've got a little history. I'm not sure if that's of interest, so I can kind of power through that. And then I've just got another slide on some important points. So I hope that is okay. Yeah. And you can,
yeah, I think it's very useful to know a bit of background.
Yeah, you can tell me to shut up at any point. Obviously, those who don't know me, Toby Webb, I'm a managing director of a law firm in the city, and we do corporate immigration. It's a lot of that has been in the skilled worker route now. It's been domiciliary care homes. Oh, Jingo, I think is getting some feedback.
Yeah, Peter, if you want to go and put on pause, let me. I've got that. It's done. Thank you. You're welcome.
Sorry, that's my. I'm a bit of an amateur. So yeah, looking at sponsorship and care providers. So pre-Brexit, you know, it just wasn't an issue because essentially we have a list of skilled roles. Carers, senior carers were just not on that list. So post-Brexit, senior carers were included on the skilled occupation list. What that meant was that you could sponsor a senior carer in your business, but you would have to meet the general salary threshold at the time, which was 25,600. Later, that role was added to the shortage occupation list, which meant that the threshold that you needed to meet was substantially lower, 20% lower. I'm not sure how much I mean, I assume you are members of various lobbying groups that kind of contributed to that. Senior until Feb of the next year, you still weren't able to sponsor a carer or care worker. So before that, we would be talking about sponsoring only senior carers, and that would, as senior carers, that would involve some level of management of other care workers. So since February 22, carers, as I say, were added to the shortage occupation list, code 6145. So carers, care workers, care assistants. What that meant was when you, and again, if I'm saying something that this is sort of general knowledge, stop me, but when you're sponsoring someone, you are, that person needs to work for you, and they're allowed to work 20 hours elsewhere in a similar position, if we're talking about a carer. But in Feb of 23, the 20-hour restriction was lifted for a time up until August, which meant that carers could work in other care organizations for over 20 hours a week. There are some important points on that I'll mention in the next slide. April 23, the shortage occupation salary increased. Not sure if that's that significant, having heard the lady's point earlier, but for some of my clients that was significant at the time. So 1075 an hour and 20,960 per annum, you have to meet both of those. So you have to give enough hours in order to meet the annual rates. Important point. And I'm just gonna have to move that over there, right? Oops, sorry, my fault. August 23, this is obviously more recent. we've had the MAC review, Migration Advisory Committee. So that's a body set up by the government to advise them on these kind of issues. So, which jobs should be on the shortage occupation list. They have statisticians, economists, etc., looking at holes in the labour market, and they have advised that carers should remain on the shortage occupation list. And that was, we're talking about the 3rd of October. Since then, we've had these very large figures that Sir Dudley referred to earlier, and Robert Gendrick, the immigration minister, who has recently written to the government advising of that above point, that care workers should remain on the list, has this quote is from the Commons. So he's recently said in the House of Commons, social care visa is not working or hasn't worked as well as it should. You can read the quote. It's a political football, isn't it? So we are a little bit subject to political wins. So it's quite difficult. We get a lot of questions about this, about the increase in salary. I get the impression that Sunak, the PM, is pro-migration, but we expect some changes, put it that way. We don't know how it's going to affect the care sector. As I say, the hard evidence suggests that the carer role should be kept on that list. But as I say, it's a political situation, as you all know. So whether hard evidence goes out the window is another question. So yeah, I can't really comment too much on that. Moving to the next slide. So these are some points I've just thrown out there because I didn't have a kind of specific brief at the moment, so on what I wanted to talk about. But these are some points that crop up quite a bit with our clients, and things that I find myself repeating. So and you can jump in if you want at any point. The recruitment side of things, I think Dudley touched on this. Some of my clients, which does surprise sometimes, given that a lot of them are CQC, well, all of them essentially are CQC registered, are a bit weak on the recruitment side of things, keeping the right documentation relating to recruitment. So you've got to be incredibly rigorous with this. We've got to keep paperwork on every step of the recruitment. So that means from the very beginning, when you've first touched base with the migrants, through the interview notes. Referees are very important. The Home Office are going to ask you, okay, well, why did you hire this person? And they're going to want to see hard evidence of the checks that you've made. I can take questions on that. The ISC, I think a couple of questions came up potentially about that. Just important to note that that cannot be reclaimed from the migrants. That happens a lot, it seems. So that is a immediate revocation of your license if that happens. So yeah, it's a no-go. Reporting. Well, again, we do with our clients, we do stress before you get the sponsor license how important it is to be aware of the reporting requirements of the license. Not only the reporting requirements, but the other documentary retention requirements. But reporting seems to be missed. That I'm not sure if I'm doing the compliance seminar, Dudley, but if I am to do one, I'll go into detail about that. That would take a fair amount of time. The salary. Now, I have clients, I take them through a compliance audit I had one recently. She was amazing. And then she said, oh, at the end, oh, I haven't been paying that person, as if it's optional. It's not. So the salary and the payment of salary is the kind of underpinning of this, or certainly one of the important parts of the whole points-based system. So, you know, it can't be undermined in that respect. The Home Office will remove your license if you're not paying people as per the CAS. There is some flexibility. I think someone made a comment about reduced hours. You can report that, but you've still got to be above the threshold. Obviously, maternity leave, things like that. There are some exceptions, and health reasons supported by the normal paperwork. CAS and new licenses. Yeah, this was just a comment that the Home Office are, and I think again Dudley mentioned this. Oh, I've got half a note there. The point is they are definitely scrutinizing both new applications and CAS requests, and I think for those who have licenses, you'll be familiar with that. So they're asking a lot of questions, and I'd started to write, particularly looking into contracts and rotas, and essentially the need for new for new workers. So they want to know that the work is there. Obviously, we have some problems with that. You know, lots of my clients say to me, okay, well, we can't win the contracts without the workers. But that again goes to probably the salary point. The Home Office is quite aware that lots of people are coming in and they're not being paid, which is a breach of the license obligations. And obviously, you know, if you're a migrant, you're coming to the UK, you've got to be paid to survive. Third party working, this is another point that it comes up a lot. Domiciliary care, you are managing, you're sending a carer to a client's house to look after them, you're managing them directly. What you can't do is you can't send a sponsored worker that is employed by you to a care home, to another care home, to work for you if they're being managed on that site by that third party. That is a breach. So there are some grey areas here, but we get that cropping up quite a bit. And sorry about the missing note there. Employing migrants, yeah, this pops up quite a bit too. If someone's stopped work or they've had their contract terminated with the main sponsor, they can't work for you even for 20 hours. So you've got to be clear with them. Do they remain sponsored? You essentially need to check with the migrant on that point, because it won't show up on the right to work check until it's too late, essentially. I think that's it. I was told to keep it a little bit short today, so by all means.
Thanks for that, Toby. Yep. I think
was that useful, or was
no?
That
it's very helpful. I think there's lots of questions, and it's such a big area. I think we could probably spend many hours doing that. Brief on what you touched on. Someone in the group asked what an ISC is, so if you could just quickly explain to them.
So have they? That person has a license. If you do, you'll know when you assign a CAS. In most cases, so let's say the migrant is abroad, you have to pay the immigration skills charge. It's a tax, essentially, £364 per year at the moment. Funnily enough, the MAC had advised the government to drop that for those in social care providers, but it's not. They haven't taken that piece of advice, unfortunately. So it is essentially a migrant tax that the employer must pay when you assign a CAS to someone. In most cases, if the individual has a student visa, you'll be exempted from that, but in all other cases, you won't. You've got to pay that, and it is specifically mentioned by the Home Office that you must not reclaim that from the employee. So you can't dress. And this happens a lot too. You can't dress up, a clawback as you can't try and claw that back by kind of dressing, a clawback as something else, which does happen. Does that make sense?
Indeed. So I know time is probably going to get the better of us, and I know we've got Toby who works as a full-time lawyer, so we know that his time is precious as well. So there are a range of questions that we've got in the chat box, and we're going to try and get through as many as we can. And Toby, obviously, for anything that you can't answer now, we will kindly, and if time beats us, come back to you with a response. You've got
my email there. By all means, you can drop that.
Okay, thanks for that. We'll see that in there as well. Okay, so if we try and sort of go back, there were a few questions here. I mean, the first one was originally by Delapo. I think, Delapo, you want to come in and ask your question again and remind Toby of your question, if that's possible, if you're still here.
Yes, please. That's about the variable hour of job in the domiciliary care sector. Because you want to give the hours. Start of the week, you pulled out the worker on a particular fixed hours. By the middle of the week, something happens. Client goes to the hospital. They're there for weeks, days. The package of care ends. The client sometimes rejects the staff for one or two reasons. So issues like these are ongoing. That then the hours they keep fluctuating weekly. So I don't know how to address that even.
I think the main point is you've got to pay above the minimum rates, number one, regardless. Okay. If you don't have the work for the migrant, you've still got to pay them at or above the minimum rates. So that's the really important point. Thereafter, you can report a reduction in hours, etc. I think someone mentioned it in the chat. You can do that, but you can never go below the 1075 and the 2960. If you're doing that, unfortunately, you need to stop the sponsorship. Otherwise, when you get audited by the Home Office, you're going to most likely lose your license. So unfortunately, the Home Office notoriously are bureaucratic. They're not commercially minded whatsoever. So, and as I say, the salary is an underpinning of the whole scheme. So they take it very seriously. So there are only very limited circumstances under which you can underpay.
It's not the rate I'm talking about. The problem is the council, they commission most of the care hours to the agencies, the DOM agencies. And when a client goes to the hospital, they don't pay nothing. Nothing is paid.
But Delapo, yeah.
Yes,
they don't care about your contract with the council, how many hours. You are responsible for the hours, not the council for the Home Office. So if you said, oh, but the council not giving us the hours, they just simply don't care. Remembering on a monthly basis, you've got to be paying them whatever the figure is on the COS, essentially divided by 12, right?
Yes.
I think if I may interrupt, Toby, one of the issues which is very common with regard to domiciliary care providers is the use of 0 hours. And it has been put to me that 0 hours and international recruitment does not work or do not work together. And I know a number of dom care providers who are using international recruits. However, the international recruits they have are on guaranteed hours.
Yeah. Because
that way they can guarantee the pay. And that has caused some issues with their, if you like, their domestically recruited employees, some of whom are still on standard hours. And we have had a conversation with a number of local authorities asking if they could provide a part of the overall hours. Say, for example, a DCA is getting an average of 1,000 hours a week. It might be 800 this week, 1,200 next. We've said, well, can you provide 600 hours a week guaranteed? Because you haven't dropped below 600 hours for the past, whatever it is, 3 years. And they say no, because it goes against some of their contracted terms, which they put in the tender at the start of the issue, allegedly. And until some of the local authorities revise their terms and conditions, we're not going to get very far with this. And I saw another question that came up there, which was actually about male carers. Now, there is a drive to get more male carers into social care, and this is an overarching central government requirement, if you like. However, as the questioner put in the question, many people prefer female carers. So some providers have been importing male carers as international recruits, really to sort of top up their numbers, but they don't actually have direct employment for them. So they're actually getting themselves into a messy situation.
Yeah.
And you know, you as the expert here know far more about this than either myself or Dudley. And we're finding that quite a lot of people, frankly, are trying to dodge around the system.
That's why I think in that note that I'd only half written, the Home Office are starting to look at, okay, well, do you actually have work for these people? Let's see your contracts. Let's see the hours. Let's see how many people you've got working for you. You know, where's the demand? Let's see your rotas even. So they're looking at this in way more detail. But I think the issue is the Home Office is like a silo. It doesn't work. It's not connected. I mean, even immigration and employment law butt heads. So you mentioned domestic or workers, right? Or people who are already here, and migrant workers. There's sometimes immigration law and employment law simply don't mesh. So, I mean, number one rule is you don't treat them differently, because you're going to get a discrimination claim at some point. But the issue with the contracts is the Home Office and the councils are not talking, right? And the Home Office, from the Home Office point of view, you put the hours on the COS and you stick to them. Particularly if it's, I mean, the way they look at it is if it's an hourly rate, they've got to do a certain amount of hours to hit that annual salary, right? If they're on an annual salary, then they can't be working too many hours. So, I mean, if you're going to be doing limited hours, the best way to do it is to do a per annum salary. And then, you know, if they work less hours, they're going to get paid more. But what you can't do is not pay them. And that is where I'm saying the Home Office are not commercially minded. They don't mind if the council's not giving you the hours, that's your problem for the Home Office, not theirs. It's not an excuse for them. They simply don't care. And that's what we're dealing with. You know, we've been telling the Home Office, look, you can't get, a lot of my clients are losing contracts because we're not getting the people in we need. And they're saying, well, we want to see the contracts in place when we apply for the COS. So, which is not the way it works for people who want to win some of these contracts.
Exactly.
But they simply don't care. So that is a job for the lobbying bodies in the care sector to try and get the ear of someone and get that changed. But
I think it's important, Toby, what you're saying. I think the whole point of it is, and I think part of the reason why we're here is really to say, okay, there are things that are already in the ground level, which is nothing to do with overseas recruitment. I think it's an ongoing battle between hours, guaranteed hours, and wages. But what you can do is do things in the right way. So if you're following everything by the letter of the law, then that's the most important thing. But understand the pitfalls that go ahead. So if you know you're a dom care provider, you know that your hours fluctuate, and you know if the law is that you're meant to guarantee hours, you have to be sensible when going forward. I think rather than just go a COS license and bring people in, which is going to be a lot more difficult unlike before, you have to be sensible as well, rather than saying, oh, I can't afford to pay this. But
and you've got to, I think the way to approach it with that is you've got to look at the per annum salary. If you're not entirely sure, and go for the minimum, which is 20,960, so that's got to be paid whatever, right? If you're not sure about the hours, or if you think they're going to drop below, let's say 37.5, or depends what you're paying by the hour, then that will give you some flexibility, because you're always going to meet that minimum rate in that respect. And if you're going to go above, so you're starting to go below the 1075, then you can report, and you can say, well, actually we've we're moving to an hourly rate or something like that. So it's complicated, I suppose. You have to look at, you have to do some planning, as you said. But the thing is, the most important point is, if you're not paying them, they're not going to accept the fact that the council are mucking around with the hours as a reasonable excuse, because they don't work like that. Which is probably not what you want to hear.
I mean, we've actually spoken with CQC in detail about this, and they have spoken with the DH, and they both operate in silos, exactly as you said, and don't actually talk to each other.
Yeah,
and there's a fine example of poor souls being completely ripped off. They've been charged up to 20 grand each to come into the UK. A dom care provider with virtually no business applied for a license to the Home Office, got quite a big license. I'm not even sure that they'd actually had a CQC inspection, but all they had to do was provide their CQC registration to the Home Office.
Yeah.
They got a license. They imported a lot of people that they charged up to £20,000 each.
Yeah.
And then they basically dumped those people. And the owner of that company is now trotting around in a nice, shiny new Porsche.
I mean, that is essentially organised immigration fraud. And that's what's ruining it for all the legitimate providers at the moment, because I've got a number of big clients who are desperate and we're having to jump through so many hoops, and the Home Office are much slower now because they've had to be, and they haven't got enough staff, as far as we understand. So it kind of makes your blood boil. But
okay, I'm going to move on to a question in the chat, and then we're going to ask Susan, who's got a hand up afterwards. If we can just limit to the questions, we haven't got long. So a question here by Julie, and Julie says, for example, agencies who are often giving them staff, but also acting as an agency, but also as well as sponsors. I think the question is understanding that sponsors cannot hire out their workers to other organizations.
Yeah,
all seem to think otherwise.
No.
So a lot of people are not sure about this. So you just get clarification.
We get a lot of this. There's no confusion here. If you are essentially providing labor, you shouldn't be sponsoring someone. So it's one of the points I made in the slide there. You've got to be managing that person. You can't send, if I've got a care home and I've got a sponsored worker and I haven't got enough for him to do, I can't just send him to my friend's care home to work there. And agencies shouldn't get a license in the first place. Some of them do. And they will lose their license at some point, because that's clear breach of the license regime.
So one other area that people have been talking about, and you've mentioned it, is this magic 20 hours that all providers seem to speak about. And I think everyone says we can take someone on, and as long as they can do 20 hours. So the question, and the main question is, can you take on another person if you're not their main sponsor?
You can. So the rule is, if they've got a if they're sponsored as a carer by someone else, then they can work as a carer for you for 20 hours outside of their normal working hours at that care provider. The rule is a bit funny because then you would need to know what their normal hours are, etc. So you're essentially having to ask that carer and confirm with them. But yeah, 20 hours, as long as they've got, say, a sponsored in 6145 or 6146, and you're doing a right to work, you're getting a share code off them in the same way you would with anyone else.
Okay, no problem. Susan, I think you've been waiting patiently. Can you come in and ask your question, please?
Yeah, I just wanted to know regarding the audit that the Home Office will do. How is that completed? Is it a visit? Is it online? I mean, we've done 20 from overseas and probably 40 within the UK. So it's a tall order to make sure that we've ticked all the right boxes. So how will they complete this audit?
Have you been invited to one already, or what's...
No, I haven't. No.
Potentially could be a digital meeting. They're majority, but they're entitled to also come to your place of work as stated on your license. So the answer could be either. Typically at the moment it is digital, but I've had a few clients who've had visits, physical visits.
Okay, that's all I want to know. Thank you.
And in terms of the compliance, what are you not? What do you think you're not doing?
I just want to make sure. I mean, we do exactly the same checks. We get obviously the police record checks when it's overseas. We get the same police record checks from them, and then because it's only got a finite life, like 3 months, once they get themselves established in the UK, we then apply. Once they've got a fixed address, we then apply for a DBS, in the UK. And then from that, we would renew theirs. We normally renew every 3 years. But what we would do with these individuals, we put them on the update service, so we can capture anything that could happen between, any given time, really. So we can check them on a regular basis. But I just want to make sure that, all the other checks that we've done, which is very similar to what we do in the UK, is we can mirror them for overseas. And that's what we've basically done. We haven't done anything.
Are you aware of the license obligations? Because that's obviously the main thing.
Yeah,
you are.
Yeah, we're aware of that. So, I'm just hoping that we've done everything in the right way, really. And
get us to check, or another lawyer to check, to do a mock audit. That's what we do with our clients, which is very, very useful. So it'll make sure that you pass when the Home Office actually do it.
Okay, yeah, I'd never thought about that. Yeah, I think we could consider that. Sounds like a good idea.
Cool. You've got my email. By all means, email me.
Good, I will do. Thank you.
Oh, Dudley. You're mute, I think.
Thanks for that, Susan. And you've covered a really great question that was also in the box about do the overseas DBS? Do we also have to do the overseas DBS as they have not been in the country for long? So there was a sort of a well done regards to that, Susan. Obviously, I know the update service is something that when people come in here, there's pre-checks that people should be doing beforehand anyway. But listen, no one can guarantee you someone's passed in another part of the world, but there's definitely things that you can do. Toby, if you want to come in here in regards to that.
Well, from an immigration point of view, you're doing it if they're abroad. If they're here, you don't need to. From the CQC, I assume you still have to do it, but I'm not entirely. Yeah.
Let's confirming that. Magdalene, if you want to come in, please, very quickly. Magdalene?
Yes, sorry, please.
That's
yes, okay. It's just a clarification when the 20 hours supplementary 20 hours. I was told that if the person that the company that gave the COS hasn't got any job for that carer, she's not allowed to use that 20 hours. How is it?
If they're not working for that employer, then you can't, strictly speaking, employ them for 20 hours. So really what should happen, and there is a slight gap in the in this compliance regime, Because if she, I mean, how do you know that? They've probably told you. If they didn't tell you, you would just simply do a right to work check. You see the 20 hours and you give them the 20 hours, fine. If you know that they're not working for their main sponsor, then strictly speaking, you shouldn't be giving them the 20 hours. The main sponsor should terminate their sponsorship. That's how it should work. But as I said, there's a gap because, you know, the Home Office relies on sponsors to report as they should, and lots of them don't.
Thank you very much.
So really, strictly speaking, you're protected because you have the share code, you have the right to work check. But, you know, ethically, or, you know, you should really be not employing that person.
Okay. Thank you.
Cheers.
Look, I think we almost probably can have one more question in where we can. I'll try my best to try and pick a question which is slightly different. And this one will be more around. So, for example, we hear that staff have come into the country now, Toby, and they don't want to stay with you. Where do employers stand if a migrant comes in and then they want to leave you after 3 months? What takes place from there, and what do you do?
Terminate. You would end the contract in the normal way you would with it, you know, anyone, British or non. And then all you have to do is report through the SMS that the sponsorship has been terminated. That's the only extra bit of work you have to do. So you have to be compliant with employment law in the same way you would be with all of your staff. And then you have to do the reporting through the SMS.
A lot of the time people say they've paid money out. Are they allowed to get any money back if the migrant leaves?
They should get a refund. Now, it is a bit of a wishy-washy area on the ISC, the skill charge. They should get a refund on that. The way that works is not very uniform, and the team that deals with it are essentially impossible to get hold of. So yeah, it's not but yeah, in theory they should be getting some money back for the ISC.
Okay, so look, thank you everyone, and thanks Toby for coming in. We've got a lot of questions in the chat box, and we're going to come back to you as well. I'm conscious of time, so we're just going to round up so we can get back to our slides, Peter, and put our sort of details up. Thank you very much, Toby. Your information is there. If you can as well, Toby, when you come off being Spotlight, you can share your information in the chat box as well so they can access.
I will do. Okay. Thanks very much.
That's okay. Thanks for that, Toby. This is an ongoing space, and this is just having a solicitor in for just half an hour. There are a tremendous amount of questions going back and forth. We know there's so much to change as well. And yes, questions will be shared, and Toby will be answering, and we'll also give feedback as well. We'll put our details in the box as well, in the chat box as well. This is an ongoing space. We understand it's not going to be fixed overnight. I would say to anyone as well, because I know a lot of people who are also doing DIY, do it themselves as well. If you're going to do it yourselves, remember things can and may go wrong, and it will be at cost to yourselves. So if it even means spending and going to a lawyer, just getting an overview and just understanding the parameters of where you stand. It's one of the things that's just really highly important in this space as well. Peter, before we go, we've got 5 minutes left. And then
okay, thanks, Dudley. And Toby, thank you. That's brilliant. There's a huge amount of information there. And I'm sure we'll come back to you. And we've got the questions. We will try and sort out the questions. They will all come to me. I have had a number of conversations with local authority commissioners with regard to fee rates, etc. And one of the points that's come across to me is that a number of the commissioners, and they do vary enormously, are very reasonable people, and they know the fee rates they pay are very low. They went through the fair cost of care exercise, they learnt a lot from it, and they know what they ought to be paying. But as a local authority, they have to supply a budget to central government, and that has to be a balanced budget. if they supply a budget that is out of kilter, they will not be allowed to go forward. It was pointed out this morning at the meeting with CQC that a number of local authorities in London are on the brink of failing, going bankrupt, in effect, Section 141. And this creates something of a perfect storm. And where this goes and how it affects social care is very difficult to actually get an accurate handle on. And social care does not seem to feature very highly in the political shenanigans at the moment, because many of the people that I suspect, perhaps personally or even cynically, that many of the people that social care looks after are the elderly and the vulnerable, who are seen by some people in the political sphere as not contributing to the balance of trade, to the wealth of the nation. And also, if you look at international recruitment and social care, over the many years, international recruitment has had a fantastic positive effect on social care. It's brought in many entrepreneurs, lots and lots of new ideas. And frankly, without international recruitment, social care wouldn't exist. And I suspect the NHS wouldn't exist either. So as Dudley has said, we've got a long list of webinars. There will be face-to-face ones as real events. We will keep you informed. We've got a number of WhatsApp groups in existence. If you are getting information from us, but you're not on a WhatsApp group, let us know with your mobile phone number and we will add you to the relevant group. Just tell us whereabouts you operate in London. If you want to talk to us about anything on a confidential basis, then you have our details and you can contact us. The slides from today's event and from all the other dates will be put on the LCAS website. We circulate people regularly to say that we've added information. If you don't get information from us, please let us have an updated email address or check your spam or bulk box, because we use bulk mailers and some email systems reject those as spam. But as I say, you've got our email addresses, you've got our phone numbers. Please contact us. Neither Dudley or I are legally trained. We're not experts. We're probably not experts in anything. But we know a good deal of people who either claim to be experts or are experts.
I wouldn't go that far, Peter. But
and we will try and put you in touch. We will try and get you the answers that you require. So, have the rest of your afternoon. Have a good afternoon. Look forward to seeing you again on future events.
Very quickly, Peter, in the inbox, there's, as I said before, I've put a link to the next event that's happening on the 8th, and it's going to be around unlocking sponsorship licenses, costs and complexities. In the form, there are a set of questions which you can send beforehand when registering, so we know we can do in advance. As Peter said, we're going to have experts that are going to come in the room, and we speak nationally, but also with the government and things like that. So it's not an issue in regards to that. But please do get in touch with us. Obviously, we're working on this project in regards to international recruitment, but Peter and I are tied in across all of health and social care. So anything that's related around it, we play a part in that. So thank you very much for joining us. Do share information for the next session, and I hope to see you soon. The questions, Peter, can you put in the address for the website as well, if possible?
Yeah.
What we will do, apart from just emailing us, we'll be getting the questions today's session, and we'll be able to send it out to everyone as well, or you'll be able to access the website as well in regards to the feedback on the questions that have been asked today. And we will get experts such as Toby and others to cover the answers. Okay,
I've put two things in the chat. I've put the LCAS forum website. I've also put the details of an invite to an event we've got on the 13th of December, which is technically a registered managers event, and that's around contract law. We've also got NICE there, and we've got skills for care there. And again, like today's event, you can use it as part of your CPD. So do come along, and if you've got any more information, then contact us. Any more needs, contact us. And all the information, I can see several people have dropped their contact details in the chat box. that they want to be passed on to Toby Way, which we will do in the next couple of days. Keep in touch, folks. Thank you very much for attending. And Toby, thank you very much for yourself.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Take care.
All the best. Goodbye now. Bye.